Vindictive prosecution. Vindictive prosecution. Vindictive prosecution. We've been saying that Donald Trump walking himself into his own vindictive prosecution trap. Dude's trapping himself as it relates to this vindictive prosecution of James, Comey. But not just James, Comey. All of these political adversaries that he's very publicly, and yes, you guessed it, vindictively demanding that the Department of Justice prosecute. That becomes evidence in a formal defense that can be brought in these criminal cases, and it can result in dismissal if the criminal defendant, the person charged, can prove that this prosecution meets the elements of vindictive prosecution. Now, normally, vindictive prosecution is a high bar. You can imagine lots of criminal defendants think that their prosecution is vindictive, right? They don't like me. The government's angry at me, it's because I'm this or I'm that. So it's a high bar to actually prove actual vindictiveness or to meet another standard of presumptive vindictiveness. A very, very high bar. But Trump's just laying out all of the evidence right there. So we've been talking about one of the potential precursors to what I think's going to happen in Comey. I said, remember Harry and I before said, look at what's going to happen in the Abrego Garcia criminal prosecution out of the Middle District of Tennessee. I know you may be confused because there's lots of Abrego actions. There was the case in the federal court in Maryland, right before Judge Zanis, about returning him to the United States, about protecting his, certain rights vis-a-vis the federal government and ICE. So you had those proceedings in Maryland. But then separately, once the Trump regime finally returned him to the United States as required by a Supreme Court order facilitate his return, they then immediately brought charges against him in the Middle District of Tennessee, based on an arrest from 2020, not an arrest, based on a traffic stop, let me be very clear, from 2022, with no arrest, where they basically stopped him when he was driving other people. Even the highway patrol or the people who stopped him in Tennessee didn't really see anything enough to arrest him. But then later that was used to say, you were involved in human smuggling. The people who were in that van must have been trafficked by you. And that's what this was really about. So you can imagine it'd be a pretty hard case against the Big E.O. Garcia, where none of the people in the vehicle were interviewed. He can invoke his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. There wasn't enough evidence for the state trooper, whoever the cop was, to do an arrest to begin with. They just let them go, and they were trying to make a human trafficking case out of the body cam footage from this 2022 traffic stop, basically is what it was. So Donald Trump and Pam Bondi, they've been ignoring all of the local rules, right? And they've been saying, oh, we're going to get you Abrego. Abrego is a terrorist. Ago is a human trafficker. Abrego traffics children. Abrego is a gangbanger. Look at his hands. It's MS-13. Look. And they drew on it like letters that weren't there. MS-13. Look at it. Look at it. Look at it. Well, guess what Abrego did? He's fighting back. And part of Abrego fighting back. And when you fight back, you win. And here this federal judge out of the Middle District of Tennessee basically said, look, you've made a requisite showing that I need to conduct an evidentiary hearing into whether or not there's been a vindictive prosecution. You've raised enough facts and evidence that leads me to believe at a threshold matter that you can clear that very high bar, right? Because judges want to first see, can you clear that bar? Otherwise, everybody would be able to bring one of these. So the judge says, yes, you've cleared this bar. Now I'm going to do an evidentiary hearing. That means we're going to bring in all of these Trump officials and you get to do discovery on this issue. And the judge points out all of Donald Trump's social media posts, all of the statements by Pam Bondi, all of the statements by the Justice Department officials, all of the statements by Attorney General Todd Blanche. And the judge says, this is pretty outlandish behavior. I've never seen anything like this in my judicial career. So that judge has ordered that there be an evidentiary hearing. That's going to take place. And I'll just read for you what the opening salo is to this right here. It says, Abrego's motion is not ripe for decision because he seeks discovery in an evidentiary hearing because there's some evidence of vindictiveness here. For the reasons that follow, the court holds that the totality of events creates sufficient evidentiary basis to conclude that there is a realistic likelihood of vindictiveness that entitles a Brabgo to discovery and requires an evidentiary hearing before the court. Decides his motion. Oh, Harry Littman, Talking Feds podcast, Talking Feds YouTube, Talking Feds Substack. This is a dream come true for lawyers of Abrego Garcia. Can you imagine what that discovery is going to look like? Who's going to be deposed? I mean, Blanche's name is mentioned. Bondi's name is mentioned. And what are they going to say? Bo, the now Third Circuit judge, like total, this is like, a Hail Mary pass out in. Because has been a Brago from the start. Just the U.S. has made it clear, and really, it has been Vinda. It's been so clear that they were glad by the finding that, in fact, they'd sent him down against orders, and they've tried everything to say, oh, he's a gangbanger, as you say, or he really is a pro. They've had every excuse in the book. And even though it's unbelievably petty, the United States of America against this one guy who they mistakenly sent down nevertheless, it's been completely evident that the Steve Millers and even Pam Bondis of the world just want to get him and they hate him. And they've said again and again, we're going to deport him. Oh, and by the way, if you don't play ball with us, we won't deport you to a nice place. We'll deport you. And this is the plan to Uganda, which is supposedly a hellhole. In other words, a real sort of petty kind of focus on harming him. And what did he do, by the way? He's the guy who got sent down against a court order by the U.S. He did nothing. But it became a political scandal, and they've been really after him. So he has seemed to me and others to be really kind of in a maze that one way or another. He's going to will end in a bad place because they can always whatever happens in the criminal trial. And you're 100% right. Okay, you say we have to bring them back, fine. But here's this bogus, puffed up a conspiracy complaint that so now, at every turn it's like they wanna make him sorry. But anyway, so it's looked as if they can maybe try him criminally. I think he could maybe get off criminally, but then they just squire him as they can. The controls are very loose in the immigration system. We're taking you to Uganda. Maybe we'll even do it without the any kind of criminal trial. This is a game cure. Selective prosecution is a constitutional violation of the Due Process Clause, and well, it should be, and federal courts who find a violation of the Constitution have broad equitable powers. So you could. It really seems all of a sudden, Brow has just been and he's now detained on immigration hold. It actually looks like he may have a route to freedom and being reunited with his family, and his kids, one who has special needs, etc. Now, this is going to be the kind of case that, they'll fight very hard going up the ladder and they'll try to say this shouldn't count for vindictive, and it'll in that sense also be a big precedent because the question is, do you defer when the administration or Miller or whatever? Oh no, it's just on the merits. But we can really, the judge, here to the judges. Credit is just, feeling and seeing this is what district court judges are supposed to do. They're there. They're on the ground. They see what governor is going. And they say, you know what? This really looks and feels like a vindictive to me. And yes, you're 100% right. What they ordered this could also happen in Comey is discovery. And discovery of what? Well, it's everything we've been. Wait. How did this guy come to be criminally, you did this sort of secret grand jury move? Let's hear about that. Who talked about who said what to whom? And they'll try to say executive privilege. Well, fine. Let's hear what Bondi said to Blanche. What Blanche said to Bo, etc. So this has the risk for them of laying bare what has obviously been a completely crass political strategy that has nothing to do with doing, justice or enforcing the laws. But how do we, screw them? And those are going to be depositions or interrogatories or whatever that. Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, not to mention the President of the United States, are going to want to try to avoid in the worst way. And so you're going to see fights along those lines. And there's also another remote possibility. But the landscape looks so much better for Argo than it has today than it has at any time. Since March 15th, they may get in a position where, we'll just drop the whole thing rather than let Bondi and Bo and Blanche be deposed. So this is quite a turnabout. And, unless they get countermanaged from on high and they Shouldn't the right remedy should be do the deposition and complain about it later. This could actually be the kind of successful Hail Mary that, Abrago's been, somehow praying for. How about Abro Garcia? I mean, when history is written, this guy is, hanging in there. And it would be, remember, the Trump regime said to him, we'll let you go to Costa Rica. You can live out your life there. Have a great rest of your life. You just have to say that you did the human trafficking that we accused you of. Just tell it, and we'll make this all go away. And he said in front of the United States government, no, I'm fighting this. And I think it's an important message to everybody out there as you watch massive, powerful law firms capitulate. Billion-dollar, trillion-dollar market cap corporations capitulate. You see people like Abrao Garcia. You see people like Jean Carroll. You see people who stood in there. They win. You win when you go the distance with this guy, and you're able to expose what's going on. That's, I think, a big lesson of this, too. Harry Litman, Talking Feds YouTube, Talking Feds Substack, and the Talking Feds podcast. Thanks, Harry. Thanks, Vince. New Meidas merch. Head to store.MeidasTouch.com today and get yourself the best pro-democracy gear and show your support. That's store.MeidasTouch.com. Music.